All right, we are in open court with all counsel and Mr. Liggins present. We are outside the presence of the jury. I did have an opportunity during the break to speak with Judge Russell in Oklahoma. He is not aware of a statute that they have that's like this, although it's called the Uniform Act. So he's going to do some checking. And he said if they had that statute and it's reciprocal, he has no problems, he will certainly sign whatever we send him. I gave him my cell phone number, so he will be calling me back at some point to let me know what he finds out. So as soon as I hear back from him, I will let you know.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, I think we can have a gentleman. Please be seated. I'm getting a little better, getting closer to the time, I tell you. I apologize for that delay.
Thank you, Your Honor. Chief Schaeffer, before the recess, I believe you're testifying regarding surveillance that has been set up on Linda Adams' home in Meyer in blue Peugeot vehicle. Eventually, and we've heard the testimony of Detective Huss, so you're aware that eventually Mr. Liggins was observed in that vehicle and then followed.
Yes, the next morning, or next day.
And at some point did that bring in the Hillside Inn Hotel?
Yes.
And that was one of the locations Mr. Liggins went?
Yes.
Was an attempt made to see if he was a resident at the Hillside Hotel?
Yes.
What did you find out?
There was no Stanley Liggins registered at the Hillside Inn.
You eventually find out that he was, in fact, staying there?
Yes.
Under what name?
Charles King.
Eventually, I believe Detective Huss testified, and I assume you're aware that Mr. Liggins was encountered at the Hillside Inn and taken to the Davenport Police Department?
Yes.
As was the Peugeot?
Yes.
Now, were you present at the time of Mr. Liggins' interview?
In the building, yes, not in the room.
Were you able to listen to part of it?
Yes, my office, I have a monitor that I can monitor the interview.
Now, was there a part of Mr. Liggins' interview that you heard that caused you to take further action?
Yes, you know. Mr. Schaeffer, the question was there part of the Liggins interview that caused you to take further action?
Yes.
And that was regarding a gasoline can?
Yes.
What was that?
There was a gasoline can found in the trunk of the Peugeot. And during the interview, they had asked him if, about that gas can. He said he had used that gas can 3 or 4 months ago to help two ladies that ran out of gas. And it was asked if he put all the gas into the gas can, and he said yes.
Show you what's been marked for purposes of identification as State's Exhibit 47. You recognize that picture?
That's the trunk of the Peugeot. The Peugeot open and the contents inside of it, and on the left-hand side of it, in the trunk, is the gas can.
Is it an accurate depiction of how Mr. Liggins' trunk looked at the time the vehicle was searched?
Yes.
So I move to amend State Exhibit 47.
Any objection?
None, Your Honor.
47 is admitted.
So, Chief Schaeffer behind me on the screen is State Exhibit 47. Can you explain what we're looking at there?
That is the same photo that I just identified as a trunk, open trunk of the Peugeot with its contents in the gas can, positioned as I saw it in the trunk of the car.
And during this interview, Mr. Liggins had said what about the gas can?
They helped two ladies that ran out of gas, and he put gas in their car, and then put all the contents into their car.
And when was that occurrence in relation to September 17th, if you know?
3 or 4 months prior to our date of interview.
And he said he emptied the contents of the can into the vehicle?
Yeah, and I remember him saying that there was always a few drops left in the bottom, but he put it all in.
Well, we put it all in, but he said there's always a few drops left.
That's what he said, yes.
So, and he indicated whether there had ever been gasoline in that can after he helped this woman out by pouring it all in her tank.
He said that was the last time he used that gas can.
And what was found as far as the contents of that gas can when the vehicle was searched on September 19th?
Lieutenant Kern took possession of that gas can, and he handled that there was some liquid residue on the bottom of the gas can, and then he removed that as well as fingerprint container.
You know how much was removed?
No, I did not.
But some amount of gasoline was removed from that gas can.
That's correct.
On September 19th.
That's correct.
And why did you, what interest did you take then, based on Mr. Liggins' statements?
Basically, my common sense would told me that that gas would have been, had evaporated, had been used 4 months ago. I know that that gas can had no caps on either the vent pipe or the spout.
So, surmising that the gas would have evaporated, had it been used empty 4 months before, yet it still had some gasoline in it on September 19th, what did you do?
Well, the car had been moved to our vehicle holding area, which is actually an old building the city took over that we store large pieces of evidence in. It was an old Greyhound bus depot. I had the only key to that to maintain the chain of possession of the car and so forth. I went to evidence and signed out the gas can that you see in the photo there that Lieutenant Kern had processed and placed into evidence inside of our building. Then I went and got a liter of gasoline. I used a beaker and put in an exact amount as I could of a liter of gasoline, or 1,000 milliliters from our gas pumps. And I placed it in that gas can. And then I placed that gas can and went down to the storage area. Like that.
I can just stop you there a minute. recognize what state exhibit 96?
Yes.
What is state exhibit 96?
2.5 gallon red gas can, plastic with a black spout. No lid.
And is that the same gas can that was in Mr. Liggins' trunk?
Yes.
And it was removed by you for this experiment?
It had already been placed in evidence, and so I signed it out of evidence for chain of custody. And yes, this is what I put the gas in.
Still want to move to admit state's exhibit 96.
What number was that?
96.
Any objection?
Second. No objection.
Exhibit 96 is admitted.
You were describing the condition of that gas can as far as caps, I think, or that sort of thing. What was that testimony?
When it was found, there was no caps on that area, or it was
Can you show the jury what you're talking about?
I would say this was the bin area, there was no cap there or on this found.
And that's the way it was when it was found in his trunk.
That's correct.
So what did you do then after you had removed that from evidence, that exhibit 96 from evidence?
I got 1 liter, 1,000 milliliters of gasoline from our service area, and I placed it in that container. And then I took that container down to where we were holding the car in our impound area, and I placed it in the trunk as identical as I could, just in that photo there, and then closed the trunk and resecured it, and left it there for 4 months.
Anybody have access to that vehicle?
No, I had the key to it.
And what happened then after 4 months?
I went down, removed it again, that container. I dumped all the contents out of it as much as I could until the last drops came out. Measured it in that same beaker and found that there was only 440 milliliters of gasoline left in the container.
And what did that tell you?
And the 560 milliliters had evaporated.
And what did that tell you regarding if there had been a few drops left in the bottom for 4 months?
Objection, Your Honor. It's improper testimony related to veracity of witness.
He can answer if he knows.
My common sense told me that it would have evaporated and there would have been no gasoline in that container after 4 months.
Was there another experiment then done with the Peugeot and one of the experiment or demonstration done with the Peugeot and one of the witnesses?
Yes.
And you know when that was done?
Exactly 1 week after the discovery of Jennifer's body at Jefferson School.
Why wait 1 week?
We wanted to have the same time frame, same lighting conditions and so forth, the whole place, and duplicate as best as possible. We were trying to replicate what one of the witnesses had seen when he came over the top of the hill in the 1000 block of West Point.
And that was White Eston?
Yes.
So what was done with Mr. Ted, and you said 1 week later, so we're talking about September 24th?
Yes. 1990.
And what was done from your observation with Mr. Eston?
Detective let's back up. We took the Pujo back up to the scene. We placed it exactly where Mr. Espen said it was, and how he saw it, which was with both rear doors.
That's the same.
The idea was to try and reenact what Mr. Espen told.
That's correct.
And to photograph that,
Yes.
and who was that done by?
Lieutenant Colonel.
And Detective Murphy?
Yes.
Was something else done on September 24th?
After that, we returned to the station.
Let me ask you this, what time of day was that done?
We adjusted the hours to even for the 1 week as far as sunset went. So we added about 7-8 minutes to it. We got from the Weather Bureau. And so we probably took those photos just after 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock in the evening?
Yes, 8 p.m.
And what happened then?
Oh, when we got done, we went back to Lieutenant Kern's area, and back then, all our film was on negatives and so forth, and we had a dark room where we could develop film that, and we developed some of the photos.
Lieutenant Kern would have been a photographer, a scene photographer at that time, and he's taking some pictures.
Yes.
And he had the ability to develop them.
Yes.
And it's not like today where you can put it on a screen and enlarge it or make it smaller. That will, you actually did what?
Develop film in dark room.
And what was the purpose of going back and looking at this film?
At that point, we wanted to make sure our photos came out. You didn't know, you weren't able to view them until you did develop them. And so Kern went back to his lab and processed the film.
Was there something that you and Lieutenant Kern were specifically interested in?
Well, on this particular point, we wanted to be sure that the photos indicated replicated what Mr. Easton said. When we finished that, I said to Lieutenant Kern, I was still not sure, because when I viewed the body the week before, I saw this gray substance on that was melted into her hair and her clothing.
Okay, I'll just stop you there a minute. I'll show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 11. Proposed Exhibit 11. And ask if you recognize what's depicted in that photograph.
Yes.
And State's Exhibit 12.
Yes.
You had just testified that you had seen a gray substance on Jennifer's clothing and hair, and you were interested in reviewing that part. The State's Exhibits 11 and 12 show the gray substance that you're talking about.
Well, the night that I viewed the body, there wasn't that much that was exposed because it had melted and melted in her clothing. And it looked more like duct tape at that point.
But the question being, is State's Exhibit 11 and 12 an accurate representation of how she appeared that night and showing the gray substance you're referring to?
Yes.
This time I would admit State's Exhibit 11 and 12.
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibits 11 and 12 are admitted.
Chief Schaeffer, looking at State's Exhibit 11, can you show some areas where that gray substance that you saw that appears?
noticed it when I walked up to do the initial viewing of it within right in this corner here.
And at first you thought maybe it was similar to duct tape?
That was my first impression, yes.
What does Exhibit 12 show?
Well, that's a photo that Lieutenant Kern took at the autopsy.
And does that show more of that substance that you're talking about that was melded to Jennifer?
Yes,
And her clothing?
yes,
And where is that?
this entire area.
You then were interested, I believe you testified, you were interested in working with Lieutenant Kern at that time to get a better look at those pictures or pictures like that, to get a better look at that substance.
Yes,
And so you did that by Lieutenant Kern actually physically enlarging photographs by developing them.
yes.
And what, in doing that and looking at those pictures, what do you find out?
Basically, Exhibit 12, because that was substance that was underneath the body that did not melt, and it gave a clearer picture. It just like came to me that that's a garbage bag.
Anything about it that made you come to that conclusion that it was a garbage bag?
Basically, the size of what we were seeing there, and that it was silver on the outside and dark gray on the inside. Those were not common garbage bags in 1990.
What was uncommon about it?
The color. Basically, that's why my first impression was duct tape.
The gray color was unusual?
Yeah, there were not many garbage sacks out at that point. If you said a garbage sack, you thought of dark green or gray, not a light gray.
So after coming to the conclusion that what that substance was a garbage bag, what did you do?
Well, we had been working pretty much around the clock, and so most people, everybody was hanging out at home. I was still president of the station, and I was heading home too. Lieutenant Kern had left.
What time are we talking about on the 24th?
Or midnight.
Okay, so the 24th, about midnight going into the 25th of September now?
Yes,
A week after Jennifer was found.
yes.
And what did you do?
Well, I was going to assign, we had not been able to clear everyone in a canvas at Hillside Inn. We knew that there was a roofing company that was staying there with 4 or 5 roofing trucks. They were always out on a job when we were over there. I had originally planned on sending somebody over to look at the roofing trucks in case they used a bag of this nature, a silver bag that in their cleanups or whatever, because we still, it was another area we had not cleared on the canvas. So basically, I left the station to go home, and I thought, I'll just swing over there, and because I thought they're going to be back out on the job site before I can get detectives over in the morning, so I thought I'd just go over there and see and go home.
So at that time, you knew that Stanley Liggins was residing at the Hilltop Inn?
Hillside Inn, yes.
Hillside Inn.
Yes.
And you went over there because you thought perhaps these roofing companies would have been using these type of bags?
Either they were or they weren't, they at least cleared that off of our canvas.
And why would you go over there at midnight?
Because each time we've been there before, they were already out on the job site, which we didn't know where they were at. And I felt that if I waited till we had detectives in the morning, they'd be back on the job site, we wouldn't be able to do it. So I thought it's just as easy for me to swing over there on my way home, a little bit out of it, and I
So what did you do?
drove over to Hillside and saw the roofing trucks there, and got out and started looking through the flashlight.
And what do you mean you looked through, how did you look through these trucks?
There was 2 of them that were box trucks. They obviously were pretty big, maybe have a waist strap or down or whatever, but they had covers over them. And I literally climbed up on side of it, pulled the cover back, and looked in the truck.
Now, you're conducting an investigation in another jurisdiction, correct?
Yes.
Oh. Did you notify Rock Island that you were conducting this investigation?
No, this would not warrant that.
What do you think would warrant notifying another jurisdiction that you're working in their city?
If I would be in contact with someone or that, if we were doing an interview or something, I would have probably contacted and had someone go with me, like you were pairing up with the officers in the original investigation. But if I was just going over, look at something, and go home, I wouldn't have been bothered with that.
And you were already working a joint investigation with them?
I'm sorry, so.
You were already involved in a joint investigation with them on this?
Yes.
So you're in the trucks looking, what happened?
Actually, while I was up on the side of the truck and looking inside of the one, I heard a bunch of tin cans being, I heard the noise of them bouncing up by the apartment complex.
So what did you do when you heard the tin cans?
But it drew my attention. I looked that way and I saw an individual walking back towards the north carrying just was a wooden garbage can, white wooden garbage can. Apparently, I thought he had dumped those cans in someplace and made that noise.
So what did you do?
So I went over to see what he did.
What did you find out?
There's two stairwells over there. They go up to the second level. They're outside stairwells, but underneath the stairwells, there's an alcove where the second floor is coming down to the first floor. They had made a storage area there that's closed off with a door. And I don't know why recycles or cans, aluminum cans, and there was a big storage area for recycled cans.
Start with the big picture. What is depicted in States Exhibit 5?
This is an aerial photo of the hillside inn, which is on the southern portion of the quasi-natural weekend. This is the hillside inn. This is the two stairwells I was just describing. They had an alcove or a storage area underneath the stairwell for the aluminum cans.
And which alcove did you go to first?
I went to this one here, this closest one.
And what did you find there?
Like about 500 to 1,000 cans piled up in there, and some green garbage sacks.
What did you do then?
Went over to the second one and looked in there, and I saw a corner of a silver garbage sack in and amongst those cans, like about the same amount, 500 to 1,000 cans.
A lot of cans.
A lot of cans.
And what drew your attention to that specific garbage bag?
Silver in color, same as the substance that I just identified on that photo.
Appeared to be the same.
Yes.
And you testified that was, at least in your experience, an unusual type of garbage bag.
Yes.
I'm going to show you proposed exhibits. '69, 70, 71, and 72. I'm just asking you to look at those exhibits. Do those exhibits accurately depict the hillside inn and the area of the alcoves as they appeared on September 24th? Now, I think we're actually talking early morning of September 25th, 1990.
3 out of 4 do this one.
Excuse me, the 3 that do would be 69, 71, and 72, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, regarding the one you said was not reflected that night, States Exhibit 70, and I apologize, that's actually a daytime photograph at the hillside, correct?
This is actually at the hillside apartments, which is adjoins it to the north.
That's the inn. I would like to admit States Exhibits 69, 71, and 72. No objection.
69, 71, and 72 are admitted.
After you saw the bag, okay, let's go to States Exhibit 69. What's depicted in States Exhibit 69?
It's the hillside inn, and that is the first set of stairwells that I checked wherever the place come from, that I checked out.
But then, as you testified and showed on the other exhibit, you went to another alcove, is that correct?
Yes.
And is that depicted in States Exhibit 71?
Yes.
And can you describe what we're looking at in States Exhibit 71?
That's how I found the alcove when I looked in there and saw the corner of the bag.
Now, let me go to States Exhibit 72. What is States Exhibit 72?
It's a close-up of that same photo.
After you found the silver bag in that alcove at the hillside, what did you do?
I called our department by radio and asked for Lieutenant Kerman and Lieutenant Loggy from Rock Island to respond to our...
And did they respond then there?
They did.
And what was done when Lieutenant Kern and Loggy arrived at the scene?
Lieutenant Kerman took these 2 photos here. Eventually we confiscated that bag as evidence.
So these pictures, 69, 71, and 72 were taken by Lieutenant Kern pretty much right after you found the bag.
Yes.
And that bag was then taken into evidence, is that correct?
That's correct.
And what did you know about the appearance of that bag?
It appeared to be the same color and both on the outside and the inside of the substance that I saw earlier in argument that Lieutenant Kern gave me.
On the body of Jennifer?
Yes.
Now, was any further investigation done regarding the trash bag at the hillside?
This is a large alcove, like I said, 500 to 1,000 cans. We were making a lot of noise. to stay in there. Obviously, we didn't want to disturb them anymore. So I asked the two primary Lieutenant or Detective Murphy and Lieutenant Huss to go back over in the morning, which was about 7 o'clock in the morning, and completely search that alcove.
What was the result of that search?
There was another silver bag found buried underneath the cans.
Another similar bag to the one you found underneath the cans?
Yes.
And that was taken into evidence?
Us to go back over in the morning, which was about 7 o'clock in the morning, and completely search that alcove.
What was the result of that search?
There was another silver bag found buried underneath the cans.
Another similar bag to the one you found underneath the cans?
Yes.
And that was taken into evidence?
Yes.
State's Exhibit 107, have you seen that exhibit before?
Yes.
Is that one of the bags that was taken into evidence from the hillside on September 24th?
It appears to be.
You were involved in this investigation throughout, is that correct?
I didn't realize by that.
You were involved in this investigation throughout, through trial, everything?
Yes.
At the, well, let me back up. So through this investigation, testified reports are eventually generated. What agency reports did you receive?
What agency did I receive? The reports I received from the agencies? All of Davenport, all of Rock Island that I was aware of, and all of the fire departments.
And what did you do, what did you personally do with these reports?
Well, all the reports were going to a supervisor first. If they're Davenport, it wasn't too much difficulty for them to get them to me. I always have a three-ring binder with tabs in it and categorize them into certain areas so that I can go back to those as reference and so forth. Some of it's the scene, some of it's witnesses, and that's alphabetized, and et cetera. And every report that I receive, I put in those books.
How many binders, in this case, of reports did you personally create or wind up with?
2.
And you believe that those binders contain all the reports you have?
All the reports that I had, for sure, and all that I was aware of.
At some point, were Mr. Liggins' attorneys allowed to review those reports, those binders?
Yes.
How was that done?
Old binders we provided a room for them
You provided a room for them where?
in the detective bureau.
At the Davenport Police Department?
That's correct.
Right. And what was done?
And the county attorney's office provided a clerk or somebody from their office because we were not going to have direct conversation with the attorneys. And they were given both books and ample time to look at everything in the books.
And when you say they, who was given ample time to look at the books?
The attorney, which has been McHenry and Scoville.
And you were present, at least in the building, when that was done?
I knew that it was being done, I didn't know, yes, but they had access to it.
But you purposely were not in the room, just the 2 attorneys and a paralegal from the county attorney's office?
Yes, and the paralegal was there so that they would come out and ask for certain things to be copied or multiple things to be copied or in the copy machine, just adjacent to our room. We did not want to have the detective see what they were copying, so it was strictly with the paralegal.
So they were allowed to copy what they wanted to, but you didn't have knowledge of what they were copying?
That's correct.
It was intentionally set up that way?
Yes.
And were they allowed to stay and review those binders as long as they wished?
Yes.
And make as many copies as they wish?
Yes.
One of the witnesses in this case is Wanda Hughes. Is that correct?
Yes.
And were you familiar with her involvement as a witness in Liggins' investigation?
Yes.
Did you sometime find out later that she had been a confidential source for the Davenport Police Department?
Yes.
Did you know during the Liggins investigation that she was a confidential source?
Did not.
Had you ever met Wanda Hughes? I know you said that you knew the name based on the investigation, but had you ever met Wanda Hughes before?
No.
When, approximately how many years after this investigation did you find out that Wanda Hughes was a confidential informant?
8 or 10 years later.
Now, let's talk a little bit about that. What is at least as it pertains to your experience in the Davenport Police Department, what is a confidential source?
Confidential source, or the entire police department works off of informants or sources of information. If you're in control or so the B car knows what's going on there, and they have people that they can do. But in fact, this is the same thing, but with a confidential source, this is where we're more into drug buying or undercover work. And so you protect their identity.
And how, so what do they do? What do they do for the police department?
Normally, they provide information or actually do go out and do drug buys and so forth for the police department where we could not do it. They have somebody who they can buy to, so we do what's called a controlled buy with that confidential source. And basically keep their identity secret.
Is it an important aspect of the detective work?
Well, definitely the Vice Narcotics Bureau.
Common practice amongst all police departments, or at least larger police departments?
Yes.
Have you had training in the use of confidential sources?
Yes.
And how much training?
Well, originally when I took over Vice Narcotics Unit, I went through I believe it was a 3-week class of the department, DCI, which is like the FBI of the state of Iowa, DCI, put on in Des Moines in reference to, it's called LEAN, Law Enforcement Intelligence Network, and part of that was the use of confidential sources and management of them.
And how do you manage it?
Well, once you determine that you have someone who has information that you might want to use as a confidential source, we do an extensive background on them first. That background would include, obviously, their full name and identity and so forth. We go into the last previous addresses. We go into families and siblings. It's fairly in their education and so forth. We try to determine what the motive is, why they're coming forward. It could be anything. It could be good citizenship. It could be a variety of things. But you want to know why they're coming forward with this information, and may also want to do it as far as for monetary reasons. Once we determine that this could be a good confidential source, we actually draw up a contract with that individual and have them sign off on it that would be involved in no crimes and so forth. We take a picture of them, we assign them a number, and the first 2 digits of the number would be the year, and then so like this year it would be 18-1, 18-2, 18-3. We also give them a fictitious name so that if they call in and ask for a specific detective, they're not saying what the name is. There's no association with the police department with this individual. Even the reports that are being typed up, whatever they're giving, it's usually using a fictitious name
how much is their identity protected even within the police department?
Extremely, I mean, but we even make them aware of this, that this is a safety issue both for themselves and for the officer. So they are not to tell anyone, not even their family members, that they are working with the police department. And then the only individual who should know their identity would be the handler, which is the detective, and his supervisor.
And what level of rank would the supervisor be?
Sergeant.
Essentially, two levels. The person who's the detective, or the one working with the confidential source, and the sergeant.
That's correct.
And nobody else.
No.
So that would be Tennessee above.
Yes, you don't want it, and actually that file is kept in that sergeant's office
Line.
Yeah.
And that is to keep them anonymous.
That's correct.
Because of the danger to them if that were to get out.
To them and to the officer, to the whole operation of it.
Puts the officers at risk too, because they'd be going into a dangerous situation.
Yes.
And that was based on at least training that you've had?
Yes.
To how to set that up?
Yes.
And how are the funds accounted for? How's the money paid to these confidential sources?
There's a receipt done. Individually, obviously put the report number down, what the circumstances were, and it's obviously reported to the report number that will have a narrative to it. That narrative, again, is only going to have the CS number and as well as the fictitious name. But they signed a receipt. They signed a receipt that they were given $60 for this information that was covered by.
Regarding Wanda Hughes, did you subsequently find out that she was acting under a different name as is protocol?
Yes.
When she worked with the Airport Police Department?
Yes.
And that was 8 or 9 years after the Liggins matter?
That's correct.
And what knowledge prior to that did you have Wanda Hughes was a confidential source?
I did not know that she was a confidential source.
Was Wanda Hughes paid any money for her involvement in the Liggins investigation?
Was not.
Was she given anything in exchange for her involvement?
She was not.
What, were you the detective that would have worked with Wanda Hughes as it related to the police department?
Say that it was I.
What detective worked with Wanda Hughes in relation to the Liggins investigation?
But from the knowledge that I gained after when I found out she was from CS, she originally started with one of our officers in the MAG unit, which is Metropolitan Enforcement Group, which travels both sides of the river, and that would have been Elaine Moore. And then Elaine Moore, which is
M-O-H-A-R.
And then when she transferred back as a MAG unit, she turned Wanda Hughes over to John Groves, which was one of the undercover officers in the department.
So initially, Wanda Hughes worked with the Metropolitan Enforcement Group,
Yes.
which is actually a separate agency from the Danforth Police Department.
Yes.
It does have Danforth police officers involved, but it's a combined enforcement group with other Illinois and Iowa agencies.
That's correct.
Just so I can clarify, I believe my question was who Wanda Hughes worked with on the Liggins investigation. I believe your answer was who Wanda Hughes worked with on the medic side of things. So let me just re-ask. You testified that the detectives who worked with Wanda Hughes on the drug end of things were Melaine Mohar and John Brooks. Is that correct?
Yes.
What detective, if you know, worked with Wanda Hughes in relation to the Liggins matter?
Detective Murphy.
Captain Murphy?
Yes.
During this investigation, were you contacted by Donna Atkins?
Yes.
When did that happen?
Then the 18th, it's approximately 10 o'clock.
How do you know the time, the approximate time?
I know I got a call transferred into me from somewhere else in the department, called down to the front desk and transferred up. And she identified herself as Donna Atkins. She said, I just saw that car.
Yes, Your Honor, hearsay.
Sustained.
Asked to be stricken from the record.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that part of the answer that you heard is stricken from the record, so please disregard it.
After you spoke to Donna Atkins, was there something done with the red Peugeot in relation to her?
Yes.
And what was done?
It was taken back over to Hillside Apartments, which she said she saw it.
It's about 5 after 12. Should we take our lunch break?
Yes, sir.
All right, why don't we start again, ladies and gentlemen, on 120. Back in by 120. Please keep the application in mind and discuss the case and continue to keep an open mind. Please rise to the chair.